He okay. You ever meet someone who thinks the world spins just for them? Well, that's Karen, president of the Maple Creek HOA, the woman who thought her authority reached beyond her neighborhood gates. But when she tried to break into my private ranch cabin, claiming community inspection rights, and her master key didn't work, she called the cops on me. What she didn't expect was that my wife would be the one to answer the phone. And that call would change everything. This isn't just a story about an HOA gone wild. It's about standing up for your peace, for your home, and for the people who believe in you when everyone else tries to tear you down. It was the first weekend of spring, the kind that still smelled faintly of winter, but promised warmth if you waited long enough. My wife Emma and I had driven 3 hours out of town to our ranch cabin, our safe spot tucked deep in the pines of northern Idaho. We built that place ourselves, plank by plank, nail by nail. It wasn't just a cabin. It was our escape from the noise, the gossip, and the constant petty drama of the HOA back home. See, we lived in Maple Creek. Picturesque. Suburban community with too much money and not enough kindness. The HOA president, Karen Holt, made it her life's mission to control everything from mailbox color to lawn height. We'd gotten on her bad side when I refused to cut down an oak tree that didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic. She fined us. I appealed. She doubled the fine. Emma told her, quite calmly, which made it sting worse, that we were selling the Maple Creek house and moving full-time to our ranch. Karen smiled that tight, fake smile of hers and said, "You'll be back. People like you always come back." So, when we left Maple Creek behind, I thought we were done with her. Until that Saturday morning. The sun was just sliding over the mountains when I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. At first, I thought it was the mail truck or maybe a neighbor passing through. But when I peeked through the window, my stomach turned. There she was, Karen, standing beside a shiny white SUV with the Maple Creek HOA logo still plastered on the door. Clipboard in hand, sunglasses perched like armor. Unbelievable. I muttered. She actually found us. Emma looked up from her coffee, calm as ever. Maybe she just wants to say hi. I laughed. Yeah, and maybe coyotes pay property taxes. Then came the sound of metal scraping, the doorknob rattling. I froze. She wasn't knocking. She was trying to unlock the door. Emma stood. She's using a key, I said. We both watched as Karen jiggled and twisted something in the lock, frowning when it didn't turn. She yanked harder, then stepped back and muttered to herself. Her voice carried enough for us to hear through the door. "I don't understand," she said. "This key opens all the community cabins." Community cabins. That's when it hit me. She thought our ranch cabin was part of her HOA property. "Mom," I called through the door, "you need to step away from my house." That's when she turned, eyes blazing. "Excuse me. This property falls under Maple Creek jurisdiction. I have full inspection rights." I opened the door just enough for her to see me. "You're 3 hours outside Maple Creek, Karen. You don't have jurisdiction over a single pine needle out here." Her mouth twisted. "Then why is your address still registered with the HOA database?" "Because you never processed my withdrawal form," I said. "Remember? The one I handed you personally." She huffed, then did what Karen does best. Escalate. She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the sheriff. You're trespassing on HOA managed land." I almost laughed at how absurd that sounded, but Emma touched my arm. "Let her. She'll embarrass herself." But I didn't expect what happened next. When the sheriff's office called back to verify ownership, I wasn't the one who answered the phone. Emma did, and her calm, steady voice changed the entire course of what came next. The moment that would turn this petty confrontation into something much bigger. Because when Karen tried to twist the truth, Emma told the sheriff everything. From the harassment back in Maple Creek to the bogus fines, to this break-in attempt at our ranch. And that phone call. That's where this story really begins. The phone was still pressed to Emma's ear when Karen began pacing across our porch, muttering about liabilities and compliance codes. The pine trees swayed lightly in the mountain wind, their shadows cutting across the deck like silent witnesses. I could feel the tension in my jaw, the kind that only comes when someone tries to invade your peace. Emma, though, was calm. Always calm. That was her gift. She could face a storm and talk to it like it was a friend. "Yes, officer," she said into the phone. "This is Emma Callahan. My husband and I own the cabin on Pine Hollow Road, about 10 miles off Route 12. Yes, someone's trying to enter our property using a key." Pause. "No, she's not an authorized guest. She's the president of a homeowners association from another county." Karen stopped pacing and glared. "You're twisting this," she snapped. "I'm here for a mandatory inspection. There's been a zoning complaint filed." Emma met her gaze, her voice still even. "Filed by who?" Karen blinked, caught off guard. "That's confidential." Emma smiled faintly. "So is trespassing, apparently." The deputy on the other end must have said something reassuring, because Emma nodded and said, "Thank you. We'll wait right here." She hung up, turned to me, and said, "They're on their way. About 15 minutes. Karen scoffed. "Perfect. Maybe they'll finally explain to you how property management works. You think you can just leave a community and wash your hands of it. Not how it works, sweetie. That word, sweetie, hit like a spark in dry grass." I stepped forward, voice firm. "Karen, you need to step off our property, now. You're not welcome here." Her chin lifted. "I have rights." "Not here, you don't." She crossed her arms and stayed right where she was, defiant as ever. For a moment, the only sound was the wind rustling through the tall grass. 15 minutes felt like an hour, but eventually the crunch of tires echoed down the dirt road. A county sheriff's SUV rolled into the clearing. Out stepped Deputy Morales. A tall, steady man with kind eyes but a posture that said he'd seen enough nonsense to recognize it a mile away. He greeted us politely, then turned to Karen. "Mom, I understand there's been a misunderstanding about property boundaries." Karen straightened her blazer and flashed her practiced smile. "Yes, officer. I'm the president of the Maple Creek Homeowners Association. This cabin is part of our extended subdivision." Morales raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, this address is registered under Clearwater County, not Maple Creek. That HOA's jurisdiction stops 30 miles south of here." Karen blinked rapidly. "Well, maybe the paperwork hasn't been updated yet." "I was told." "By who?" Morales asked. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. That's when Emma stepped forward and handed Morales a folder. She'd brought it out the moment she hung up the phone. I hadn't even noticed. Inside was every letter, every notice, every absurd fine Karen had ever issued us. The last page was a notarized deed showing full ownership of the ranch, outside HOA territory. Morales flipped through it, nodding. "Looks in order to me." He turned back to Karen. "Mom, unless you have legal proof that this property falls under your association, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Karen's face flushed red. "You don't understand. I own the master keys. They open every cabin connected to the Maple Creek grid. This must be part of it?" "Mom," Morales said evenly, "the only thing you're connected to right now is a trespassing complaint." The silence that followed was deep. The kind that makes even the birds pause. Karen's hand trembled around her clipboard. She looked like someone realizing, for the first time, that her power didn't reach as far as she thought. Emma didn't gloat. She didn't smirk or throw a single insult. Instead, she said quietly, "Karen, you don't have to live like this, chasing control everywhere you go. We just wanted peace. That's all." For a split second, something in Karen's face softened. Maybe shame, maybe regret, but just as quickly, the walls came back up. She turned sharply and stomped toward her SUV. "You'll hear from my lawyer," she muttered. Morales gave her a gentle nod. "You're free to call whoever you'd like, ma'am. Just don't come back without a warrant or an invitation." She drove off, gravel flying, her pride trailing behind her like dust. When the sheriff left, the world seemed to exhale. The sun had dropped lower, painting the cabin in a warm, honeyed light. Emma leaned against the porch railing and looked out at the forest. "Think that's the last of her?" I asked. Emma smiled softly. "Maybe. But even if it isn't, now she knows we're not afraid to stand up for our peace." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized that's what this was all about. Not just the cabin, not the HOA nonsense. It was about claiming space for peace. About saying no more to people who drain your joy just because they can. That night, we sat by the fire, the stars spilling across the black sky like sugar. The phone rang once. An unknown number. Emma looked at it, then let it go to voicemail. "Whoever it is," she said, "they can wait. Tonight's ours." And for the first time in months, we truly felt free. A closing narration for YouTube ton. So yeah, Karen never came back. Turns out, her master key wasn't the key to power after all. It was a lesson that, when you build your life on control, you lose the one thing that truly matters. Peace. If you've ever had someone try to invade your quiet, remember this. You don't have to shout to stand your ground. Sometimes, all it takes is one calm voice, one truth spoken with courage, and the strength to say, "This is my home. You don't belong here,